Hello to our audience and welcome to the MAPcast, where we shine a spotlight on leaders in the B2B space that have invaluable experience and insights to share. Now, today we're talking with Zhihao Zhao.
Yeah, I'm the CEO, co-founder of our company called Genia.
It's great to finally meet you. We've been kicking around emails for a little bit, but can you share a little bit about your background? I looked at your educational background on LinkedIn. It's pretty fascinating. You kind of go from math to computer science to marketing, and that's an interesting mix. Can you share a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to where you are today with Genia?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was doing physics and math competitively when I was in high school. And then at that time, I felt like I studied too much natural sciences. I was like, maybe I should study more about humanities. And then that's why I majored in business economics and psychology. Psychology was all that I was going for, but then I realized, I can't really afford a life just a degree in
Right.
psychology. So business economics is sort of my my thing to make a living out of. So I went to UCLA for undergrad, a pretty large school, had a great experience over there. Later, I joined Yale in their Silver Scholars Program, got my MBA over there, but still realized that that I'm technical indeed, and then therefore I pursue another degree with UPenn in computer science. And then I looked back, with backgrounds in computer science, business, and psychology, that naturally made me a great fit for product managers because it's a combination of all three. And then I directly went into the field by joining startups because I'm passionate about working on something new. The person who led me into the field of product management and startup was somebody who used to work with Marisa Mayer while she was still at Google. He was one of the first APMs she used to hire, so it was a great figure early in place of Google, quite successful, leading team over there. It was always nice to have a great mentor early on in your career who can, teach you how to design products, how to think about things, both business model wise and how to design a great customer experience. So did that for a couple months. Unfortunately, that startup failed. And then I was all on a venture by myself. I was putting a startup called Xreal. The company this is still alive. We used to work on augmented reality smart glasses back in
Mhm.
2017. In the hindsight, we struggled quite a lot to figure out the use case. But I will actually argue that it was really the struggle itself that really made me think on a higher level how to figure out use cases for new technologies. I put together my own framework by trials and errors and really learning the hard way, and then that has really led me to where I am today because a lot of the things that we're doing is brand new, right? So both from the customer experience standpoint as well as from the go-to-market standpoint, it has to be redefining something that hasn't existed or something that has already been done in a tedious manual way. So that fits nicely with what we're doing at Genia. So I would say we benefit greatly from those early experiences in my career.
Yeah, I find it interesting that you kind of tackled engineering construction, some pretty old stoic businesses, and you probably run into a lot of architects and engineers that really they may have some animus toward AI in general. What's been kind of the challenge about breaking into such a business that's so settled in its ways? How challenging has that been?
Yeah, man. Like I think in the entrepreneurship world, people always have the impression that construction being large, despite being large, is quite outdated. People are reluctant to adopt. What I will argue is probably something slightly different. It's not
Mhm.
that people don't realize they need to evolve their workflow. People are quite aware. Like if you ask architects or ask structural engineers, they will understand that their current workflow is quite inefficient. The problem statement is well understood. The only thing is there aren't that many great solutions out there. Like a lot of software people are actively using a software built 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
And that's not by coincidence because it does take a lot of effort to build something that's properly useful because this industry, people's life are at stake and there's a legal liability for anything that a PE or SE stamps on the drawing, right? So there are certain responsibilities behind these design. It's inevitable that people will evaluate the solutions or the tools that they use, at a very high standards. So we always joke that there's no really concept of MVP in this particular field.
Right.
MVP is probably like 85, 90% done already. If the product is only 60% done, it's not really useful to anything to anybody in this field. The tolerance for accuracy is pretty limited when it comes to like errors. So uh,
Right.
that's probably the only challenging thing. But I guess the flip side of this, which is what we love about this industry, is once people buy into your software, like they will never leave. Retention is never a problem. This is a critical part of the workflow. They're desperate for like new and better solutions. So yeah,
That makes
that's what
That makes a
where
lot
we
of
are.
sense. And I know that a lot of the CAD/CAM software, some of the early software that architects and engineers started using, they're still using, 40 years later. If you can get a foothold, you more than likely are guaranteed a long-term stay in the business. So that sounds really interesting. So what are some of the major shifts and trends you're kind of seeing in the industry right now around the construction industry and the engineering? It kind of, tell me a little bit about the challenges of not only breaking into the industry, but kind of what you experienced that you didn't expect.
Yeah, I mean, like one big lesson that we learned in the hard way is that it's really one thing to build a product that can do calculations right, that can offer a great experience. Is completely another thing to convey that message clearly to your target audience. Even though it sounds simple, but like a lot of entrepreneurs, especially with like us with engineering background, we think like we always treat high quality product to be the number one priority.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but at the same time, the messaging conveying the quality is equally important and arguably more important. So one example is as part of our product offering, we have something called a calculation sheet. So
Mhm.
in the calculation sheet, we're meant to sort of showcase the engineering calculations behind our design and make sure it's building code compliant and physically valid. Right? Those are the purposes of this calculation sheet. And at times, engineers have to submit the same calculation sheet that they download from our software or from our platform over to the government. That's sort of what it takes to obtain a building permit, right? Um, and then as you can see, this is a technical part of the deliverables, and
Right.
engineers being engineers, they need to make sure it's indeed a correct calculations, right? You're not just making numbers up, and that will essentially ruin the entire calculations. We focus too much on well, maybe not too much, but like we focus a lot on getting the calculations right.
Mhm.
But what we fail to do is to convince engineers that is right. So later on, and then when we spoke with engineering consulting firms, they were asking like basic questions that we took very naturally when we were building a product. But then, like those questions were really illuminating because we realized, hey, we as insiders, we think this is something very natural. But then, like they don't know, like they don't know our codes, right? So that's why we started to put more content up online, and then some are pretty. Easy to comprehend. Like we show side by side comparisons between what we generate versus what some of the building codes dictates, and we also show some live, real client projects that they can see, hey, this is what we're generating using our software, and this is what the client used to do. So those side by side comparisons are, to a large extent, help us bridging the gap of comprehension and understanding. So, in the hindsight, we should start with this early on, and even arguably before we build the actual product. So that's probably one misstep that we took, and one lesson that sort of stayed with me for a long time.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. Now, from a sales and marketing standpoint, what have been your primary challenges? Is outreach an issue for you at all?
Yeah, I mean, like from a sales and marketing standpoint, I think people are always interested in trying new AI tools. I think we're doing this in a great era where AI is already a key buzzword. Like nobody's is not interested in it.
Uh,
The only challenge is to calibrate or recalibrate people's attitudes towards AI. Like it's funny, like people's attitudes always fall at the two extreme ends of the same spectrum.
yep.
Either they will underestimate what AI can do nowadays. They'll just think, AI is just some software, just a toy, right? So that's not exactly true. Look at ChatGPT, right? Uh, or they'll just exaggerate the power once they start to see what AI can do nowadays. They'll just say, am I losing my job? This seems to be so powerful, right?
Yep.
Seeing some
Yep.
level of
We
tiredness.
run into that too. We actually do. That
Yeah, yeah,
it's kind of like my dad was an engineer long ago,
right.
and he used slide rules, right?
Yeah,
Um, he resisted using calculators for 20 years. And and so I kind of see where, AI, it looks like, oh, it's smarter than me. It can do things that I can't do. I'm going to resist it. However, I really find that, ML has been around forever, right?
yeah,
Machine learning has been around. Predictive machine learning, that sort of thing.
sure.
Large language models are really the only big difference as far as I can
Exactly.
tell. So there probably isn't as much resistance against machine learning,
Right.
is that even though it is a form of AI, that than there is against large language models. I mean, do you find that the real resistance is in this back and forth with the machine?
Well, I mean, like our customers don't necessarily understand AI. Like they probably don't even understand the difference between ML and AI per
Well,
se.
that's
Like,
why
these
a lot of
terms,
software
yeah.
companies they try to sell their product as an AI based product when it's really just threshold machine learning, right?
That's another
It's not.
big topic. There are certainly bad players like that who are sort of ruin their reputation. But like for us, we are building a true generative AI model, right? So in that regard, it sometimes scare people away. Like sometimes they feel like it's black box out of their hands, and they're not even able to comprehend like how things are working in the back end. So that's
Yeah.
why like for us we try to bridge that comprehension gap. We try to not only open up the reasoning, but also inviting them as part of a design process. This is also psychological because if you put a user as purely as a reviewer, all they're going to do is try to assess, try to find a mistake, right? They want to prove themselves, try to identify something wrong.
Well,
They're-
especially architects and engineers. I mean, yeah,
exactly,
they're like IT.
exactly,
They're like IT people. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And if you get them involved as part of the design process and try to be a partner with them, then they feel less threatened. So there are certain things like product features that you can design. There are some messages you go to market that we can
Mhm.
sort of tailor. But and it's funny. The other trend that we see is that I mean, I'm trying not to describe this as a generational thing. There are certain folks, who have been in the industry for quite a while.
Yep.
Um, they are kind of skeptical, but for the younger generation engineers, they all their bread and butter is really the AI tools that they started to see in the university. So it's going to be a challenge even for the like for PEs, for some of the PEs who have been working in the field for like 30, 40 years ago. So how are they going to train these younger talents, starting as an intern and maybe gradually as a junior engineer? That's going to be a very interesting model. So people are think like it's a combination of both individuals' sentiment towards this as well as some of the inevitable plans that we're seeing in the labor market. And somehow as a firm you have to react on that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to find any younger talent that's AI resistant, right? So that just doesn't make sense.
Sure, sure. Now, do you find that the prospect that you thought would be your best customer, were you right? Did you nail that, or did you get some surprises around that as well, around, who to reach out to and who to talk to?
Yeah, absolutely. Our ICD has been always clear is the small and medium sized engineering consulting firms. It's not a correlation to their identities per se, but rather it's typically those firms who are working on like residential, multifamily, single family, low rise, mid rise commercials. Larger firms tend to work on bigger projects, mostly commercial, like irregular stadiums, all that kind of stuff. So it's just slightly different segments of the market. What surprised us though is that there are certain enterprises who are more forward thinking and they tend to work on other simpler products. Let's say for example Suffolk Construction on the East Coast is actually one of our customers. And them being one of the top 10 GCs in the US are always innovative and willing to embrace new technologies. There are two use cases that we're currently supporting. One is we're supporting them on adaptive reuse. So it's not a main line of their business, but they do have occasional projects like that. So we turn a primary school in Boston into an office building. Even though the project scale is not as large, let's say as a Logan Airport revamp, but
Right.
still it's quite some low hanging fruit for us to start collaborating. And also, data center is a growing sector. It's contributing a
Big time.
significant portion of, yeah, a significant portion of Suffolk's revenue. But it's structurally not that difficult. It's difficult on the only on the mechanical side, but not so much on the structure side. So those are some of the low hanging fruits that we started collaborating. We didn't really expect, quite frankly, enterprise clients come that early, but they somehow found us, and then that's we have been collaborating very happily. We have biweekly calls with their design team, and then they end up becoming a happy customer and therefore an investor as well. So,
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, and if you can build that as your footprint, working with larger enterprise customers, that's going to grow your business exponentially. So what's working really well for you right now, and what's been kind of frustrating?
Yeah, I mean, like referrals has been a great channel. Word of mouth, community approach. Engineers bond with each other quite a lot. So, we're even launching programs as to sort of capitalize on that. So there are multiple initiatives that we're launching in September around referral programs, around individual plans, all that kind of stuff that will sort of capitalize on that momentum and distill some of the sort of GLG product like growth approach to an old fashioned industry. Figma can do this among graphic designers. I don't see why we can't do it among engineers. This is the same kind of people who are willing to support each other in a good way. So even though they're necessarily competitors, but I guess we tend to see a close bond between engineers with each other. What didn't really work too well is, and I guess we're still figuring out is really the pricing plan. There's a bit of a as a startup, we try to think of it as value creation and value capturing. Pricing is something that we never get right. I would say.
That's got to be challenging because you don't have benchmarks really, right?
Exactly.
What are your, I mean, to price out your solution set? I mean, there really wouldn't be any other than, what it costs to do it the old way.
Well, so it's not even that. Like, I mean, we can certainly, obviously, like what we're selling, it shouldn't be like larger
Yeah.
than the design fee overall. And we have other benchmarks, like things like how much people are willing to pay when it comes to international outsourcing. Right. So some firms are using engineers in India, in China, in Australia for drafting and outsourcing, all that kind of stuff. So there's already a benchmark for that. But I think what's really cannot be anticipated is the secondary reaction, right? So let's say if engineering consultancies are powered by AI and they used to bill their clients, which are developers and architectural firms, by the hours,
Oh,
now they're able to deliver faster. But then, like, how are their clients going to react to that? Are they willing to pay higher price, same price, lower price for a faster delivery? I'm not exactly sure. So, and we're seeing some home builders start to take engineering functionalities completely in-house with with
mhm.
AI tools like us. So I mean, these are trends, but then like how that's going to have an impact on pricing, willingness to pay, job security, like industry dynamic. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not that visionary to be able to
Yeah,
anticipate.
but my thought on it is that what we're seeing today as far as upheaval is nothing compared to the upheaval we're going to experience in the next 5 years.
Exactly. Exactly. It's gonna be a new era. Like, I'm both excited and kind of anxious about the changes that we're introducing to this world. But hey,
It's
it's gotta happen. Like, if we're not doing it, somebody else will. So, yeah,
100%. And it's a hard world to envision
yeah.
considering where we are today and thinking about 5 years from now. Where do you see Genia 5 years from now, or even a year from now? Where do you see your company?
Yeah, I mean, like immediately we're expanding into international geographies, into different asset types, into different kinds of buildings. That's what we're working on. And within the next 3 to 5 years, there could be multiple extension opportunities, expanding horizontally to cover MEPs, other engineering disciplines in the adjacent fields, also vertically to cover supply chain management and to describe our mission to be the generative design operating systems. Why operating system? Because we're connecting everything together. Like aside from architectural design, like if they're talking about like anything downstream, we coordinate. Obviously, we help engineers generate blueprints. By doing that, it's the same time as if you're a doctor, you're writing prescriptions, right? So you're dictating what kind of medicines or materials, in our case, that will go into the actual construction. So building material suppliers are always keen to work with us, like even when we are so small, like warehouses, Simpson Strata, those are big names. Even Holcim, those are big names in the suppliers world. Like many of them are public companies. They're keen to support our growth, both technically as well as from a project standpoint. So we're able to integrate with these companies very early on, and we could even become the nexus of connecting engineering design with the supply chain. So there could be a lot more potential for us to unleash over there. But yeah, I mean that's sort of the directions that we could expand.
Yeah.
Which one is going to happen first? I'm not exactly sure. I mean, uh, yeah, I mean, I only know directionally where we should go, but I don't even know like the sequence. That will depends on multiple things externally out of our control. So, but we're excited. It's really
So
important.
are you getting the growth that you expected, or are you overworked? Do you have more growth than you can handle? Or are you still at a point where, if you had a magic wand, you'd do something to change your progress? What camp do you fall into right now?
I mean, as an entrepreneur, you never complain about like growing
Having
fast.
too much
You
work. Yeah.
yeah, you complain about not being too fast. So,
Right.
uh,
Right.
for our case, if I would go back just a couple months ago, I would hire more people fast. So,
Mhm.
um, onboarding talents is always a great challenge for startups, especially in like today's job market. Like, people are getting like good AI scientists with PhD degrees are getting 100 million signing bonuses. It's going to be a challenge for startups like us. Like, our valuation is not even 100 million.
Right.
It's
Right.
gonna be a challenging hiring journey. So that's why, like, having a vision, having a passion for what you're doing, and also willing to share part of the future with the core team, and treating them as a partner is a big part of our team building approach. So
I mean, you sound like a very attractive startup. I mean, and if as an equity position,
thank you.
I think a lot, you're going to get a lot of great talent that comes in if they've got if they're visionary and they understand an equity position and those types of things. But right now, I imagine your biggest concentration is on engineering, developers, trainers, that type of thing. Have you started hiring for marketing and sales in some of those areas yet?
Not yet. We have been working with a few growth
But you're the
ambassadors on
sales
this,
guy.
but
You're the sales guy
yeah,
right now. Yeah.
yeah, you're speaking with the marketing team,
Yeah.
but very soon we will. In the next 3 to 4 months, the proving point that we need to validate is our ability to run an international organization that can scale not just in the U.S. but also to the global markets. There are a ton of other construction, challenges that European markets face. Middle Eastern countries are facing. This is still works the same for everybody. Building codes are largely the same. So, I wouldn't see why we can't go global. So, but
Well,
having the right kind of team structure to support that is another point for us to prove.
yep, and I imagine, that you're gonna have radically different legislatures, radically different standards, construction standards in different countries, and I imagine your solution is built to sort of adapt to that as you expand to other countries, right? Is
Yeah, exactly. Actually, similarities actually bigger than the differences per se, because
that right?
at the end of the day, like, those building codes are written to the same principles of structural engineering. It's still the same thing, but people, different governance may classify the same kind of properties differently.
Uh-huh.
That part is relatively easier to handle. We have ChatGPT nowadays that can quickly summarize those differences, and we can generate codes to directly build that into our pipeline. So there's that part can be effectively taken care of. I think vibe coding and also software engineering has greatly benefited from AI's evolution nowadays. What could used to take months and to do can be done like in just a couple of weeks. So it's already, we're seeing efficient improvement on that front.
Well, I think it's really exciting what you're doing, and I think of the conversations that I've had, and we've had a bunch. I think this is one of the more interesting that I've been involved in.
Thank you.
I have a personal question for you now. If you could speak to your younger self, if you could go back to that Yale student long before you became who you are today, what advice would you give that kid?
And then at that time, I already realized that I want to be an entrepreneur. I have intentionally developed myself to do more like sales and biz dev. One thing that I didn't realize is how much personal development you have to be able to do when you build a team. So, let's say, like, for us, it's particularly true because our product managers are all software engineers, right? So even though I have been a product manager myself, like, I've been focusing too much on like getting the actual product done.
All right.
I've not focused too much on like how to develop new product managers, especially someone who entered from a different field. So that has always been like how I can sort of distill my knowledge and then my methodologies or my approaches of doing things. How can I summarize that into a framework that somebody else from a completely different background can follow? That team development aspect is what I didn't realize how important it is nowadays.
So if
Yeah,
you were to
I
talk
will.
to that young Zhihao, you'd probably say improve your soft skills.
Exactly. 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 Because that's what it all matters. Even though I can write code, I've never touched our code base. Like, I did try to change it once, but our CTO wasn't happy because I was like ruining its APIs. Like, suddenly his part of the code doesn't work any longer. So, like, at the end of the day, those kind of like hard skill sets are important, but you are gonna also going to onboard partners and co-founders to be able to, who specialize in that kind of skill sets, and they can do this much better, much faster than you. So to me, it's really fostering and empowering others to be able to thrive at their part of the job is a big part of what I should do, and I'm
That's a
still constantly learning how to do it.
That's a great attitude. And, I've worked with a lot of young CEOs and startups. My whole career has been based on startups for the most part. And I think
Nice.
one of the hardest things to do for a CEO is to start delegating control elsewhere, and
Exactly.
trusting people and developing those soft skills not only in themselves but in the employees that they bring on. It's a very challenging conundrum, and you seem to be handling it quite well. I got to tell you that we're running out of time, but I got to tell you, this has been a brilliant discussion. I've really enjoyed it. I wish we had more time.
Thank you.
I think the advice you've given to your younger self is good advice for anybody. But I want to thank you so much for joining the podcast today. We're very grateful to be able
Thank you so
to
much for having me.
share your insights with our listeners. That's going to be it for the MAPcast today. I want to thank Zhihao Zhao, and hopefully we'll have him on the MAPcast again someday as he becomes a much larger company, because it's inevitable. It looks like he's going to. Thank you for joining us today, folks.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to hopping on another podcast.
Absolutely.